all of you to the inaugural session of Effiespiration. Apologies, a bit of a mouthful since it's the first time that we are doing this. So, Effiespiration is supposed to be this weekly, pocket-sized, bite-sized sessions of inspiration in terms of marketing, advertising, digital advertising, you name it. Because we believe today is good as any day to talk about Sri Lanka being put on the global map with the first gold Paralympics medal coming our way. So we all sincerely believe as a team that inspiration, advertising, marketing put together is a great way of taking Sri Lanka to the global atmosphere and putting us on the map. And this is a great way of starting that on. So as you know, this time Zephy's committee is a power-packed bunch of passionate people, and all of them are extremely experienced in terms of global and local campaigns that has also gone on to win gold Effies as well as international awards. And kicking off the inaugural session today for us is Ama Silva. He is the Senior Manager for Digital Content Strategy at Isaba. Ama, formally a welcome to you. He has over 7 years of experience crafting and working alongside power-packed brands, which are both local as well as multinational, that has gone on to win, like I said, gold Effies and as well as big awards like Smarties, Walk Awards, and you name it, right? So I'm sure at a very young age, Ama is still learning, but he's also very passionate to share all of his learnings, his experience, and what he has become inspired by with all of us. So just a quick note before I go ahead, there is a small Q&A session after this. So if you have any questions, please leave it on the chat box. I will ask it from Ama. So Ama, over to you.
Thank you, Kavi. Thanks a lot for that introduction. Once again, guys, a very good evening. It's good to see all of you on a Monday evening. Right. So I have prepared a PPT to take you through today's session. Right. Kavi, could you let me know if you can see my screen?
Yep, clear.
Awesome. Right. Okay. So as you all know, digital for brands, brand marketing, it's a very broad area, right? So today I have picked a very targeted segment, where how or why agencies and brands, need to work together, focus on digital execution, right, to make a better impact in their campaigns. So before I get into today's topic, I thought I'll touch base on today's digital context, right? And I thought I'll start with a very nostalgic topic, Goliya Karaniya, globalization. 80s, 90s kid can directly relate to this, a concept we learned back in school, hoping that someday we will live to see this. So apparently we are living this concept, right? But we hardly realize it. Yeah. We only realize it, to be honest, when there's a long power cut, or when we run out of data, or the moment we lose our mobile phone. Right. So as you all know, the recent events, the pandemic has fueled, the connectivity, the concept of connectivity across the world, right? If I come down to numbers, according to Hootsuite reports, we are looking at about 332 million new internet users across the world, right? So at any given time, there's about half of the world connected to the internet. And even in Sri Lanka, there's more than half of our population connected to internet at the moment. Yeah. So not only because of the pandemic, right? Even before the pandemic, right? This the concept of connectivity was influencing our consumers, right? So this is one classic example that I use, right, to explain how the behavior of people has been changing over time. So what you see on the picture, I'm sure everyone knows what this cultural event is. This is Asala Perahara in Kandy, right? What you see on the left side is a picture that was taken in 2018. And you can see how people are worshipping, putting their hands together, right? And the right side picture, you can see that people are trying to capture the moment instead of worshipping. This does not mean that they have lost faith. It's just that we have become so addicted, right? Everything about digital has become a muscle memory. So everything that excites us, we try to capture it, right, and share with our friends, be active on social media, right? Just think about it. When was the last time you sang happy birthday to a person instead of your phone? Right? Even when you're at a party, when you're singing happy birthday, you're singing to your Instagram, you're trying to capture the moment, right? And when was the last time you enjoyed a sunset without trying to capture a beautiful moment and then upload it on social media, right? So digitally has largely impacted the consumer, and moving on, it's going to keep happening. Yeah. So this is another classic example, right? It has come to a point, you can't even get on a random tuk on the road without having a smartphone, right? The first question they ask is, location them mother app ekata, right? So this explains, digital is also not about social media, but how dependent we have become even on these peer-to-peer platforms, right? Okay, so 10 years ago, 15 years ago, digital would have been just another opportunity for brands. But right now, it's not just an opportunity, but the biggest opportunity that brands have, right? But the challenge for brands is that people are becoming more distracted every day, right? Because this digital has become an addiction to its users, for us, the consumers, right? Okay, so today's topic, I'll be talking on strategic digital delivery, right? So before I get to the point, right? Okay. So before I begin with the session, I thought today's topic, I thought I will take you all through a typical campaign process to understand where this topic that I'm talking today is going to largely impact, right? So if you look at a typical campaign process, right, it starts with the strategic objective. Usually this comes from the brand team, right, where they analyze where the brand needs to be, what are the issues that the brand's facing, right? So they define the strategic objective, right? And then the strategic planning team get on to research, right, and start digging for insights, right? And then once they're done, it passed down to the creative team, right, where they try to crack an idea to address this insight that they have found and connect it back to the strategic objective, right? And after that comes the media planning part, right? How are we going to take this to our consumers? So when I say media planning, it usually covers the whole media ecosystem, which includes traditional media as well. But today I'm talking about digital media planning, right, and execution. So naturally, in this process, that media planning and execution falls towards the end, right? But in order to to make your executions more impactful, right, more relatable, your role does not only belong here, right? As media planners, you might be a media planner, right? You might be a traditional media planner, you might be a digital media planner, right? You might be a hybrid media planner, you might be a brand marketer, right? Your process starts with here, right? You have to be involved in every process, because you are going to have, in one end, you are going to have, you already have so much of experience in terms of what you have executed before, and you know what has worked for the brand well, right? You understand the digital audience, and you know what sort of formats that works best for these digital audience, right? Because if you stick to only these last two steps, right, to do a proper impactful media planning and execution, you are limited to make changes to what has been finalized, right? At this point, you might try to force fit what the creative team has already finalized, right? Now, assume that if you were part of these processes from the beginning, right, with your input, with your digital insights, media landscape, right, and with all that information, By the time it arrives here, it's just a matter of, fitting it to the right platform where your audiences are, and the execution is also going to be very, very smooth. Yeah. Right. So when you do your planning, one important thing is that to understand your audience, right? We often try to target our audience without trying to really understand them, right? Even these digital platforms has allows us to sort of purely rely on the data that they provide in their ad platform, right? And it sorts of keeps us away from doing our initial research, right? So here, when I say you really need to know your audience, what I mean is you need to understand, what sort of content that they're consuming on these digital platforms. Who are the thought leaders influencing their thoughts, right? Who are the influencers that these customer segments follow, right? What are the topics in general that they are actively taking part on digital, right? Because when it comes to digital, there are so much of topics, right? It could be political, it could be about education, it could be about human rights, right? But every consumer segment has different topics that they show interest in, right? And with recent improvements like Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups and sorts, you can easily identify what are their interest areas, right? And also look at your past data, right? Because you have catered to this audience before, right? You have tried out different things, and when you evaluate those data, you can really identify what has worked for you before, which means that you can eliminate things that has not worked for your audience before. Yeah. Right. So moving on to the next one. Understanding the digital landscape and platforms. The world is moving faster than we used to, you know, uh, know how fast it used to go before. It's because of the connectivity, right? These customers, they're evolving, right? They're adapting new platforms. One of the best examples would be 2, 3 years ago, TikTok used to be one of the most criticized platforms. But look at it today, it's competing with one of the leading platforms in the world, even in Sri Lanka. It's the same, right? A friend told me once, there are two types of Sri Lankans, people who like TikTok and the rest are liars, right? So they are also on the platform, they are also consuming this content, but they don't admit it, right? But when we look at numbers, right, every day we see TikTok content getting circulated, it sort of explains, how big this platform has become, right? So as marketers, I think it's one of the challenges, not to wait until other brands take the first initiative, but to be the first to move into these platforms and explore what can be done, right? What are the possibilities? Right. So this also connects back to the last point I was explaining, adapt and evolve, right? We all have our comfort zones, right? We know areas, things, activities that has worked for us. Often we try to remain within those without trying out new things, right? But with this fast moving world, it's important that brands move fast as our consumers do, right? And the consumers also tend to acknowledge and engage when they see brands taking new initiatives. Yeah. Right. So next, I'm going to take you through some of the important factors to make your campaigns more effective. 3 areas which I believe in my experience and from what I have observed, 3 areas that brands really should focus when it comes to digital execution, right? Because achieving that full impact of any campaign, it's like catching a Quidditch, right? It's difficult, but it's fun. Right. So the first point is innovation and partnerships. Right. So when you say innovations, it's about creating new user experiences. Right. Because of one point is that digital users their activities has become very monotonous on digital. So when they see something exciting, right, they acknowledge it, right? And there's a big PR value to it, especially on the digital space, right? And it could be your big ticket to reach to global acknowledgements as well, right? And second is, there's only so much that a brand can do on digital alone, right? There's so much of talents, opportunities, right? Digital content creators, storytellers, right? Other tech brands, right? So based on your brand, there could be so many opportunities for you to partner um, in reaching out to your customers and also in order to create more value to your customers, right? Okay, so right. So I have picked one example, a case study of Volkswagen, right? So I'll quickly take you all through the strategic objective, right? So this was done by Volkswagen Netherlands, right? So families are one of their biggest buyer groups in Netherlands, right? So one of the major objectives was for them to target this audience, right, and to create a value addition, yeah. And they cracked a nice insight, right? Car rides usually are fun when you have kids shouting in the back seat, right? Singing, telling stories, asking questions. But if you have kids, you can relate to this. Nowadays, kids are always glued to their digital devices. Yeah. So they thought, using this insight, they could come up with an amazing idea to bring back interaction for family car rides. Okay, so I'm going to play the video and then we'll discuss the rest of the points.
Once upon a time, car rides used to look like this. But nowadays, they look more like this. So how can Volkswagen help bring imagination back to the backseat? By making children curious to look outside again. That's why we created Snelwegsprookjes, location-based audiobooks that bring the highway to life.
Welkom bij Snelwegsprookjes. Zie je dat ding daar? Met die draaiende wieken. Daar, dat lijkt wel een startbaan. Laten we tot 10 tellen. 3, 2, 1, go!
We scanned the entire Dutch highway system to identify thousands of lakes, all kinds of tunnels, windmills, and other landmarks along the road. We turned these ordinary objects into magical characters in our stories.
We used an advanced computer visioning system to detect all the objects by camera. It could detect what was next to the highway and what was visible.
Kids just need to listen.
Dit is een hert. Gewoon een hert. Kijk. Ai.
And let their imagination transform their surroundings. We worked in close collaboration with some of the best children's book writers in the Netherlands, who wrote hundreds of modular chapters, all triggered by objects along the road. Since each journey is different, every story is different as well, creating a unique tale for every possible trip.
Daar heb je die stomme meeuw.
Ik zie de meeuw. Daar, zie je dat?
Because no matter where you're going, imagination makes a better ride for everyone.
Right. Guys, that's one of my favorite campaigns to date, right? So here I have segmented the innovation and the partnership part separately. The idea is I want you all to focus on, what they have achieved by, focusing on separately on innovation and also on a partnership, right? So here the innovation is, they created a mobile app, right? That will make kids interact with the offline world while they are driving, while they're sitting back behind a car, right? And you also how they did it, they sort of geofenced the whole road and connected it back to the story. So eventually it becomes very interactive while the car is on the move, right? So this excitement, this innovation, right, got them to be on the #1, right, on the App Store within 24 hours, right? Because when there's an innovation, there's something exciting about it, people always want to try it out, right? And also they won six Silva cards, right, awards for that innovation. And looking at their partnerships, right? Instead of, writing the stories in-house, right? Because even agencies have talent, right? Which they can obviously do a solid job in terms of writing stories, right? But instead of that, they partnered up with some of the best Dutch writers, right? Because they knew that Kids Stories platform is already owned by these Dutch writers, right? And if they partner up with these Dutch writers, that is also gonna get them some spotlight and also more attention, right? And Reuters has claimed the top 3 spots in books category in Holland, right? So again, I'm taking the same example, right? I'm looking at different ways that they could have done this. Imagine that they didn't do this innovation, right? The amount of money that they spent on this innovation, they spent it on creating more videos. Instead of an app, they start creating a video series on YouTube. They could have still done it, right? But that excitement, that new user experience, right? And finally meeting that objective of, bringing back that interaction for family car rides, they wouldn't have made it, right? Again, coming back to the partnership they did, they had so many other alternatives to do these stories, but instead they went with the top Dutch writers to create these stories, right? So I just wanted to, highlight on how innovation and partnerships has separately played a big role in this successful campaign. Yeah. Point number 2 is be daring, right? For me, one of the most daring moments is Spider-Man stealing Captain America's shield, right? So these are the type of campaigns, where consumers go like, is that even legal, right? Have you ever seen what they have done, right? That's so cool, right? Campaigns that sort of create those kind of impressions, right? So these kind of campaigns always, playing within that thin line of policies, competing hand to hand with your competitors, right? Technically being daring, right? So when I say be daring, right? All of us are in the same industry. We all can relate to this. One of the top brands that pops into my head is Burger King, right? This has been their playground for many years, right? So even for this point, I have taken a Burger King campaign, right? Some of you all might have seen it, some of you all might have not, right? So let's first watch the video and then we'll discuss the points.
Burger King wants you to come here. Yes to McDonald's.
Burger King is trolling its fast food rival
with a promotion available through the Burger King mobile app.
Yeah, but there is a small catch.
So I saw this Burger King commercial where you can
Get a Whopper for a penny.
Only if you open the app while you're at McDonald's.
That doesn't even make sense. You have to go to McDonald's for a Whopper?
Whopper.
Use Burger King's BK app, then be within 600 feet of a McDonald's restaurant.
Burger King geofenced over 14,000
McDonald's restaurants in the U.S.
Unbelievable.
So I parked my news car about 100 feet from a McDonald's.
I'm at McDonald's getting a coupon for Burger King. I almost feel like I'm stealing.
Let's go for the unlock.
Yes!
You unlocked the Whopper detour.
This is a really cool promo, guys. How fun is this?
That's crazy.
Nice.
That's so horrible.
That's funny.
This is an amazing use of technology to get consumers out of a rival store and into your own store.
Can you do a Whopper Jr.?
They probably could make that. It wouldn't be as good as Burger King would, to be honest with you.
Okay, where's the Burger King?
Like 4 blocks to your left.
Right. Okay, so usually when I show this case study and ask people, they tend to say, you know, this is a great engaging idea, right? An idea to engage with their consumers. But when you dig deep, looking at their strategic objective, it was to get people to download their revamped mobile app, right? With the order ahead functionality, right? So in order to get people to download this app, only they came up with this idea, you know, where they ask people to go near a McDonald's. You can stand within 600 feet and then open up the app, right? And then unlock this token where you'll be able to walk into any close by Burger King and get a Whopper for only 1 penny, right? So, you know, think of the strategic objective. Objective is clearly to get people to download this app, right? Other than just pushing out a promotion, right? Or doing something that we always do, they went crazy, right? They went big, right? And they made a big noise on the global arena as well. This is one of the most acknowledged, awarded campaigns which is done by Burger King, right? Okay, so these are some stats that they've achieved. And I'm going to jump into the last point, right? Hijacking opportunities. And if you are a Friends fan, right, you know this moment, right? What Gellers did, they saw an opportunity and they went for it, right? So speaking of hijacking opportunities, this is one of the favorite areas of digital marketing, right? Even in the local context, you see a lot of brands doing agile marketing, right? What we call trend jacking. Even in Sinhala, we say for fun, "Kalochi taatal kiya," right? That is when there's a trending topic going around, right? Especially if your core TG is engaging or interested in this topic, there's a chance for the brand to be a part of this conversation, right? So what you see on the screen is something that Durex has done, right? You all know that cricket is sort of a dying art, right? People were really excited about this Legends match, and for after a very long time, the whole Sri Lanka was watching a cricket match together, right? So for good 3-4 days, this was the conversation out there, especially on Facebook. Yeah. So trend checking, guys, the difference is that these trends, you don't see them coming. You can't predict them coming, right? Whenever that happens, you have to be agile. You have to be very prompt in terms of doing any sorts of trend checking marketing. On the other hand, you have special days and events, right? So these special days and events are also well picked up by our social media and digital communities. They talk about it, they share relevant content, right? So these are the days that you can actually plan ahead for, right? So this is one another favorite brand of mine, Marmite Sri Lanka, what they have done for Star Wars Day, right? So one advantage is compared to trend checking and doing agile content for special days and events is it gives you enough time to do something bigger, right? Give something more value addition for your consumers, right? Come up with ideas to engage with them. Right. So again, coming back to Burger King, right? I hope that I'm not making you all hungry. Again, another opportunity that they stole, right? Let's watch it and then discuss. I don't want to, spoil anything for y'all.
Bei einem Horrorfilm, ne, da rechnet man mit allem, aber mit sowas ja nicht.
So this is a great example, how they hijacked an offline activity, an event, right, that sort of created or sparked their consumers to talk about it on digital platforms, right? Coming back to one of the first insights that I shared, that people talk about everything that excites them, right? So I took this example just to tell you, trend jacking it's not restricted to one post or an animated video. It can go beyond, right? There are so many opportunities out there that brands can steal and make bigger impact. Right. So wrapping up my session today, guys, what I want to tell you all is that, consistently follow digital best practices. What you know today might not be relevant in another 3 weeks, 2 months, 6 months, right? Platforms are evolving. Like tomorrow you'll wake up to see that Facebook interface has completely changed, right? Which means the formats and the colors that you have been using, you might have to amend them, right? Where, Instagram introduces a new feature and you can see that everyone is excited about it, right? So what are you going to do about that, right? The advantage is when you constantly update yourself with the new trends, new opportunities, you get this superpower, you'll be able to predict things for a certain extent, right? Cool. So that's the end of my session. Kavi, over to you.
Thank you, Amma. I think everybody will agree with me. It was action-packed, and we kind of got inspired by all of your examples. So everybody, do you have any questions to ask Amma? Amma has also been a part of... all right, sorry. As soon as I spoke, there's one. So from Dilanjan Pereira, what are the best free resources to track Sri Lankan digital trends searchers? Question.
Digital trend searches. You can always use Google Trends. Yeah, that sort of will give you a overview idea about whether that particular topic is trending or not, right? And you always can, scroll down a bit further on Facebook and you realize that whether people are actually talking about this topic. Yeah.
Any social listening tools you can recommend, especially for the Sri Lankan audience, Amma? I think what Dilanjan also wants to understand is how can we kind of keep tabs in terms of what's happening out there. So what do you do? What do you think is the best way to go around it?
The only problem we have with listening tools is, Kavi, that most of these tools doesn't support Sinhala keyword. Yeah. But you could always try, popular listening tools like Meltwater, right? Where you can take a deep dive on with your audience and understand what are the keywords that they look for and all that. Only problem is that these yet, right? I'm sure there'll be a solution in near future. Yet most of these listening tools doesn't track any singular content.
So there's opportunity out there for a Sri Lankan, if somebody good out there, to actually launch something like this.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So from a very Effie point of view, Amma, one question that a lot of people are struggling with these days, you've done great campaigns, right, on digital media. You've seen the engagement it has created, but most of these campaigns that are done on digital are specifically actually trying to drive a behavior or a attitude change. In instances like that, how can a brand actually know before and after the campaign if there is at least a small level of behavioral or attitudinal change that that piece has created? Can you advise on maybe different means of research or something you can embed onto the asset, or does Facebook or LinkedIn offer us anything even at a price to get it?
Behavioral change, of course, Kavi, it's a bit of a hard gamble to measure on digital itself, right? But if we follow through a proper research post campaign, that might shed some insight into what has changed, if the people the way they think, the message that they perceived, whether it makes sense. Those kinds of insights, I think, we'll be able to get through a proper market research. Then again, brands sometimes rarely spend on market research purely because of the costs. And also on digital, right? You can use sources, opinion leaders, to run polls to understand, people's thinking, if it has changed compared to the pre-campaign phase to the post-campaign phase, right? Because if you look at, especially on social media, people follow a lot of thought leaders, right? And these thought leaders tend to share different opinions, and also they tend to, get feedback from people of what they think, right? So using these thought leaders, I'm not talking about influencers, I'm talking about small scale thought leaders who actually speak to these micro groups. Yeah. So those platforms might be a good place to understand if there is an impact on the behavioral change.
All right, a little bit of a different question to you to keep things interesting. Now, Ekabar is an extremely popular trend. I think you can't go anywhere in Sri Lanka without actually talking about it. But what are your thoughts on brands integrating with her? Is it a good platform? If you were to do it, how would you do it? Your thoughts?
Cool. So the usual case with any trend that goes crazy on digital, the first brand should properly see what is the consumer sentiment about this trend, right? Whether are they pursuing it positively, or are they, aggressive about it? Is there's a lot of negative impact, right? And there's a bit of a unsure space also. People enjoy it as it is, but when a brand does something using the same trend, they get to go crazy and say, this is not the right place for a brand to, do something with this trend or to encourage these kind of things, right? So I would say, as the first step, it's very important that you do a sentiment analysis, right? And then always cross-check with, sample it with some of your audiences and get their opinion about it. Because the thing is, I think this falls under the daring part, right? Where you are not sure whether they will grasp this positively or negatively. But do everything that is possible to make sure that, this might have a better chance.
All right. So last but not the least, however crazy or however daring, brave your idea is, you need to have client approval to kind of this going. So what are your thoughts on that, and how do you guys actually get your clients to go through with what you come up with? I mean, you've been a part of many award-winning campaigns. How did you convince the clients to go ahead with your ideas?
One thing is making them part of the whole process, right? One thing I've experienced is, sometimes you do a lot of research, right? Starting with the insights. It could be an observation that you have noticed, right? You work on the whole set and then you take it to the client, right? And then the client is not aligned. So what I do is, what some of my clients also ask me to do is, whenever there's an insight, observation, get on a call, tell me what it is. Right, so that way, that's the first step. You save a lot of time. You know that the client is interested in this, so it gives you more encouragement also to work on it, right? Otherwise, if you don't tell them, right, you just work on it the full plan, which means you're wasting a lot of time, and then take to them, and then they shut it down, right? So what I would recommend is keep them involved, aligned in every step of campaign planning. So they also know that what's happening, and towards the end, the approval is become a very smooth process.
All right. So we have a question from Arun. He says, "Hi, Amma. How do you measure impact of a campaign on digital? Could you please explain with a local example? What's the ultimate metric to go for? Is it engagement, reach, views, and likes, or UGC, earned media? What is it?"
Right. Hi, Arun. I think one of the most asked questions also from the client's end, right? Every year during brand planning, there's a question that pops up: what is the metric that we should focus on this year? I think I'm going to quote Garmica on this, right? This should connect back to your strategic objective, right? It could be that where you see the brand has lack of awareness, then the metric should focus on making awareness, right? And if you think the brand has made enough awareness, now it's time to create more value addition to engage with their users, then the metric should be about creating engagement. And how you define that engagement is up to you, right? It could be through a TikTok campaign that you're trying to have a little fun and then, get UGC content, right? So I'm repeating my answer again. Your KPIs should align back to your strategic objective, whatever the brand is trying to achieve.
All right. Do you believe in doing campaigns for fun? Does it really have to tie back to a brand's business result? Should it, I mean, does it have to be directly in line with revenue generation? For an example, Burger King, most of these campaigns, they have a direct business link to it, but there are a few that they do for the fun of it. What are your thoughts on campaigns for fun?
Yeah, I think, Kavi, for Burger King, they have created that platform, where they have fun. It's like a playground for them, right? I think based on, again, the strategic objective, the brands can define whether, they're going to have a separate platform where they focus on engaging with consumers, right? Not being way too serious. Yes, right. But I don't think it should be spontaneous, out of the blue, a brand comes and trying to have fun. I don't think it would work. It should always be a strategic approach, a well thought approach.
Right. So we have a question from Chamindri. I think it's a very much asked question. For brands with older or mature audiences, engagement is a little challenging. How do you tackle that? Any best practices on digital?
Right. So the reason why they don't engage much could be, most of the time it could be due to lack of knowledge on, using digital platforms. Like as an example, my mom, she's very active on Facebook, Instagram, and on YouTube, right? But she's really scared that she might accidentally share someone's post or leave out a comment that she didn't mean to do, right? Because she's still getting used to the platform, right? In my experience, brands tying up with influencers that the older generation follows is a great spark for them to engage with them. Yeah. Yeah. That's about it.
I think you also mentioned the first example you brought with Volkswagen was on online to offline engagement strategy, right? Maybe until the mature audiences get used to, being like us, the Gen Zs and the millennials who are digital kind of animals. I think there has to be a strategy that kind of involves them both offline and online to keep that engagement. I think your first example was more or less a good one for that. So we have a question from Harshi. Again, one of the biggest debates right now. How effective and impactful are these so-called new age influencers? Strong words. Most of them now take on so many endorsements, it's almost mechanical. Does it even make sense for brands to invest in them anymore to get a message out?
Yeah. So in what I have observed is sometimes brands try to tie up with influencers who does not relate to the same brand values, right? And that ends up being, really either low impact or it goes sideways sometimes. So I think for a brand, when they look for influencers, it's like finding for a soulmate, right? So these influencers should reflect the same brand values, similar tonality, right? So your task of finding these influencers could be hard, right? And even in Sri Lanka, I think the maturity of influencers, I see it's growing, right? I see a lot of influencers creating a lot of value addition. mostly for the latter part of millennials and the new generation, right? Truly speaking of topics and changes that they believe in, right? And they also have close followers around them. These might not be the mass influencers, the actors, the celebrities. These are the micro influencers who's actually, creating a lot of value addition.
Awesome. Finding an influencer is like finding a soulmate. Who knows? We might have dating apps or pairing apps for brands and soulmates into the future. So Amma, it has been a pleasure, and thank you everybody who joined for this first session of Effiespiration. The idea of this session is for all of us to put our heads together and figure out how we can take Sri Lanka global. Put us on the map, like a very noble spear of hope kind of that landed Sri Lanka on the map today. I think today is as a good day as any to talk about taking Sri Lanka global. So thank you, Amma, for all of your thoughts and your effort in actually inspiring us. And thank you so much to everybody who joined today on a Monday evening for a little bit of Effiespiration on the road to Effies between 2021. So if you have any other questions, please do leave it on the Facebook page once we kind of post this. And with Amma's help, we will get back to you. We have people joining us right now as well, but unfortunately, it's the time to kind of say bye. Thanks again. Stay safe, everybody, and more importantly, stay sane. Thanks a lot. Good night.
Thanks, everyone.